Hi and welcome to this SOLIDWORKS Visualize tutorial with a Mother's Day theme. In this tutorial I wanted to show you the physics feature built into Visualize. I've used this for multiple projects such as this falling rubber ducks animation, this Valentine's Day animation, and this animation for Book Lovers Day. I'm in love with this feature. It can be used to create very creative animation projects with some very simple settings. For Mother's Day, I decided to create some heart sweets with little messages onto each, such as Love Mom, Mom Hugs and Super Mom, etc. Starting in Visualize, you can see in this window I have already created an animation. I have all of my fallen hearts here. Looking at my Cameras tab, here I have my animation camera view. You can see that from the red dot here. Double clicking this camera view, I can view my model without changing my animation keys. This allows me to check the details of my parts. Going back to my animation camera, I'm playing my animation at a 0.3 times speed, as the study runs quite fast. Starting from the beginning of my animation, you can see the yellow animation bars. These are the falling heart parts, and the pink animation bar is for the camera animation keys. This is created by me changing the views of the model at different intervals of the hearts falling. Here is the rendered version of that study. It was edited in a different software just to slow down frames. This can be a better thing to do if you don't want to create longer renderings. However, you do need to render at a better quality to create more frames, otherwise your final animation will be jumpy. Closing this project, I'm starting a new one. Within my new project, I like to begin by ensuring my camera's aspect ratio is the size I want. 16:9 is the generic screen size, so I usually choose this. For Instagram, I choose the 1:1 ratio. Selecting the Models tab, I'm using the plus icon to insert a new model and select the plane. I'll be using this as a floor part. This will act as a barrier for my falling hearts. You can run a motion study full without this, but I like to use a plane to apply an appearance to and act as a floor part. Selecting Snap to Floor, I can drag and position the plane up along the y-axis. I like to ensure it is slightly above the floor, otherwise it disappears into it. Adding a new appearance, I have a basic appearance that I can drag and drop onto the plane part like this. Selecting the colour bar here, I can change the colour of the appearance. I have my recent appearances here, and selecting this peachy pink colour. You can choose any colour you want by selecting into this box or dragging along this colour palette bar. I'm also changing the appearance to be fully rough. This creates a nice matte finish as I don't want to have any reflections. Right now the renderer selection is on preview, but to see the appearances in real view you need to change the view to accurate. This can slow down the software a little if you have a lot going on, so I tend to only use this to get a preview of my appearances or render windows before the final renderings are done. Going back to my Models tab and selecting the plane, under the transform options I can drag and scale the plane to be larger. The plane needed to be large to catch all of the falling hearts. It will also need to cover the whole screen of my rendering to act as a backdrop too. You can also scale in individual directions or reset the scale by selecting here. Scaling up equally, I'm again moving the plane up above the scene's floor height like this. Now I can begin bringing in the heart parts. Using the Model Plus icon, I'm using Import Model. Here you can see I have 13 sweethearts with a different note on each representing Mother's Day. I used one part for this and edited the text and the colour of each and used Save As to create each new part. Opening these up, I can check OK here to drop in all the parts. You may find that Visualize may bring in environments from each part. You are able to remove these. Before I do this, I'm double clicking and selecting the 3-point faded environment. Now I can delete the extra environments, backplates or lights. These are all unnecessary duplicates. You are able to do this also within the import settings of parts, to stop the software bringing in any extras you don't want. Moving on to the Models tab, I have my 13 heart parts all placed within each other. Selecting all of the hearts, I can use the Object Manipulation tool here to bring up the transform robot like this. It makes it really easy to move parts quickly. With them all selected, I'm dragging these up above the floor plane to a height high enough for a nice fall distance. The higher I go, the further the hearts may scatter, as they may bounce higher. This can also be dependent on the gravity settings applied later on. There is an option in Visualize to create random patterns with parts. You are able to create a natural variation to an array of model parts. I'll demonstrate this feature quickly towards the end, but I will say I prefer to place my parts randomly myself, but the feature could prove useful and fun to test out. Selecting Heart 1 from the list, I can start spacing apart the hearts. I can use the arrows to drag the part along the X, Y or Z axis and use the rotation handles too. Then I can select another heart and move that away. The idea here is to move, rotate, change heights and spread the hearts out. I want them to fall organically and randomly, so it's important to create a well-distributed and sporadic placement. Once the first set of 13 have been moved around, I'm selecting the list of hearts and I'm duplicating them. You can use Ctrl and D to do this. With the duplicates selected, I'm going to move them above, ensuring there's no overlaps, and rotating them so that they don't fall the same way. I then select the 26 hearts and duplicate those, and raise them above again. Viewing from the top, I rotated this batch of hearts around to ensure there's no overlap. Selecting from the list the first set of 13 hearts and duplicating them, I'm moving these higher again, while also rotating them over 180 degrees approximately, and then rotating them around again. Nothing is precise in its location, this is all by eye, and again intentionally random in its placement. Duplicating those hearts, I moved these above and rotated them onto their side. Here I'm creating even more variation in the orientation of the hearts. I want them to fall in different ways, with many being able to fall on top of each other or onto their face. I'm duplicating those two and moving them to the other side, filling in the gaps for an even fall. Of course, I need to rotate these two. For the final set of copies I'm making, I'm selecting a group from along this edge of the parts and duplicating them, moving them above all of my hearts. Then centering them. Once I'm happy with the placement of the parts, I need to apply the physics settings. Selecting all of the heart parts only and not the plane, I can select the physics tab here. Under physics, I'm able to choose a simulation type. This is what I'll be applying to the selected parts. There are 4 options to choose from. For the hearts, I need these to be dynamic. That means that they will react to gravity and each other. I then need to select the collider geometry. This is all about accuracy, but it can also slow down the simulation results. So for these parts, I'll actually be using the mesh option, even though it can slow down my simulation results. I want it to be precise in how the hearts interact with each other. Scrolling up to the plane part, I have to apply physics to this too, so that the hearts interact with the part. I needed to select the static option for the part so that it remains fixed in place, but the other parts in the simulation can collide with it. For the collider geometry, I could keep this on bounding box as it is a flat basic shape, so this will keep the simulation simpler. I won't be changing or inputting any of the physical properties of the simulation to keep this simple, but you are able to play around with the friction, elasticity and mass. The next step to look at is the cog icon, which is the gravity settings for the simulation. Right now I have the gravity on 3 meters per second. The Earth's gravity is 9.8, but I use a much lower level of gravity to slow down the fall speed and allow myself the ability to create more render frames from the animation. I can then record the simulation. Once all of the hearts drop and stop moving, I can stop the recording and the animation keyframes will be created like this. I can select play and watch the animation through. You can see a nice random scatter of parts, but I also assured that I could see all different Mother's Day themed quotes. I like to look at the finished animation from a few different views to ensure I'm happy with the finished physical fall. This is to ensure I have a choice of views for my camera animations, but also that I can check for any issues such as overstacked parts or duplicates that I want to delete. One thing I sometimes find when I have a lot of small parts is that they like to move below the floor. It's not really an issue for me when I have so many parts, as I can just delete any trouble parts that are visible to me. When creating animations like this, I may actually test out several motion studies with different physical settings before I'm happy with the final result. Moving on to the camera tab, I can duplicate my current camera and create a keyframe on one using the K on my keyboard. The keyframes will form part of the animation and allow me to create a camera animation as the hearts are falling. Once my camera animation keys are in place, I can render the animation. I prefer to render high quality settings and turn off the denoiser to keep my renderings more detailed and have more frames for editing. This is the final result. Going back into another Visualize project, I'll quickly show you the pattern feature. Bringing in the 13 heart parts again. Then I'm going to apply the physics to the parts again, using dynamic for the simulation type and mesh for the collider geometry. I'm duplicating them 7 times to have over 100 hearts. Selecting all of the heart parts, I'm selecting the plus icon and new pattern. Under the formation section of the general tab, I can see the pattern controls. Here I can choose between various pattern types. For this project I chose scatter to create a random pattern. The ranges are used to tell Visualize which dimensions I want the model to be randomized within. You are also able to select the random option here to switch between different formations. Double checking my gravity settings, I have 5 meters per second on. I can then select record. This creates an equally random fall in a much quicker way, but it is something I had to play around with until I was happy with the final animation. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.